Hi, my name is Jonathan Hopp. This is 10 Minute Go, where I give you a lesson on the fabulous game of Go in less than 10 minutes. So today's lesson will be cutting stones in broken shapes, and we're going to get started right now. Alright, so cutting stones and broken shapes. Probably when you hear commentary from more professional people or higher level commentary, you'll hear them say, words like cut, like black cut white, or white cut black's group. What does that actually mean? Well, it goes back basically to connection. All right, I talked a little bit maybe earlier in another lesson about connection. Your stones have to be connected. It's really bad if they get sort of like picked apart, right? So it's like if you have an army, you want your units to be cohesive. You want them working together. You don't want the enemy to break through your line, and then your line starts to collapse, and then you lose. All right, so there's different ways stones can connect to one another, and we think of the stones as having like sort of like movement. The Korean word is called hengma, which is like the way of the moving horse. I mean, if that isn't philosophical enough for you, I don't know what is. So stones move, all right. It's based on their connection to one another. So the first group, I'm gonna label them for you. We have Group A, Group B, and Group C. Group A is the strongest connection you can possibly get, right? And there's one more. We'll have a Group D. Okay, as I said before, A is the strongest connection you can possibly get because A cannot be broken through. And you can't put a stone in between A, or these two stones. They're directly connected to one another. D, they're very close to one another, but they're still one space apart. Remember, stones are only connected horizontally and vertically, so it doesn't really matter if they're diagonally from each other. They don't share liberties, right? These two stones share liberties. These two stones do not. And B, we have the one space jump, right? By one space, we have this one blank space in the middle, and we consider it to be a jump. All right, you can picture those stones like monkeys if that makes you feel happy. And C is a two-space jump, right? That makes sense. We have other shapes as well. Let me see if we can get to some of those. I'll label them for you. A is called the knight's move, all right? Or you also hear the Japanese word keima. Okay, it's called knight's move because the knight in chess moves in an L shape. So since basically, I guess chess players are really into this and they decided to call it the knight's move. I think it makes sense. It is basically two spaces over and one space down. This is a pretty fast shape. The stones get moving pretty quickly, but this shape you're going to find out later is pretty easy to break. Then you have the large keima, the large knight's move, okay, the ogema, all right, which is a bigger knight's move. It's three spaces over and one space down, and this shape is even weaker. Now, before I get into broken shapes, I want to kind of explain what cutting is. Okay, like I said, you'll watch Michael Redmond and Chris Garlock, and they'll talk about, white can cut black here. Black's group is very weak, or white has his cutting point. All right, these cutting points make white very weak. What are they talking about? When your stones cannot directly connect to one another, they cannot share liberties, and you can put stones to block your opponent's ability to connect. So, for example, if black plays on g5, then we have four groups on the board. We have Group A, which is these three white stones. Group B, this one white stone here. Group C, and Group D. Okay, we have four groups. Cutting stones adds groups. This D is a cutting stone. I cut white's Group B from white's Group A. All right. The reason I did that is because if white were to play on this point, then all these white stones will be connected. They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 total liberties. All right, that would be a very difficult group to capture. All right, to surround this group with stones would take a very long time. Whereas if I cut, then we have different groups, right? Because these two stones are not connected directly to each other. So this white group A has uno, dos, tres, cuatro, four liberties. This one has uno, dos, right? Just two. So cutting stones kind of a cool way of keeping your opponent from being connected. Now, there could be a problem because if your cutting stone dies, then you're not really cutting them. So I've seen a lot, like for example, in a lot of beginner games, I've seen this, for example. We'll have like white stones on the top, and then we'll have like a black stone on the top like this, and white like that. Yep. And then let's just make this. All right. So for example, white will be like, hey, I can cut black. I can cut at b5. Yes, you can cut there. Now these two groups are separated, but then you die in a ladder. Dead. So if your cutting stones don't live, then you're not cutting your opponent. And that's where my lecture on nets and ladders comes to be very handy, because if your cutting stone gets captured in a net or captured in a ladder, then it's not really a cutting stone. So I think we've got that idea pretty much down. And since we got that down, it can help us understand what do I kind of want to do when these shapes. Again, like I said before, the iron pillar, these two stones here cannot be broken apart. You can't put a stone in between them. It's not possible. If I want to cut the diagonal move, then what I would need two moves. I would need one move here and one move here. Now this is actually kind of cool because we have four groups, A, B, C, and D, and all the stones have two liberties. So all the stones are kind of equal. If I want to cut other shapes, though, it just kind of depends on what I want to do. So let's get rid of all of those. Let's go to my shapes of glory. All right, now if I want to cut the one space jump. Let's say that's my thing. I want to cut that one space jump in half. All right, I need to be able to put. Let me get rid of all these letters and all this cool stuff. I need to be able to put stones in between. So, for example, if I put a stone in here, then black will Atari me, and I'll extend. But if I get two moves, then I can cut black. Now, this stone and this stone cannot necessarily connect to each other. So even if black plays here, I have one cutting point, two cutting points. And white can choose which cutting point he wants to cut at. Now, black's groups are unable to directly connect with one another. They cannot share liberties. Okay, when you can't share liberties, the game gets to be kind of exciting because your stones start to die, or they, perhaps it gets to be very complicated. Here, the knight's move has two weaknesses. So if white plays like this, then these two stones are completely cut off. And in your games, I want you to look at this shape and say to yourself, this shape is terrible. Avoid this shape at all costs, where your opponent is running through your stones. He's like stabbing a spear right through your stones. You don't want this. All right, so what you should do is, instead of allowing your opponent to do that, if white plays here, you should just defend. Now, the reason why the knight's move is weaker is because it has this cutting point at f6 left over even after you defend. So maybe white can cut. Maybe. It just depends. Look for those nets and ladders. Okay, that's why they're important. They tell you whether or not your cutting stones are going to live or die after you cut. Right? And then that's basically a way in which you get kind of a rule of thumb. Alright, so we look at the one space jump. The large knight's move is even worse as far as weak points. Okay, you don't want a shape like this. Okay, look at the shape and see how awful it is. Black cannot connect his two groups together. White is just going to walk right in between the two stones, and there's nothing black can do. So you need to figure something out. You need to defend. You need to try to make a line to connect the dots for all your different stones so that they can maybe share liberties. But the problem is again, you have cutting points. Maybe this cutting point in your game doesn't make a difference. Maybe it does, but it's really not good to have your shapes sort of be broken very easily. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, well, wait a second, why would I ever use the large knight's move? Why would I ever use the two-space jump? Why would I ever use these weak moves? All right, like, for example, the two-space jump, if we go to that, would look like this. Why would I ever use this move, Jonathan? Because this move gets cut so easily. Like, for example, white can move in here, and if I let him have another move, then he just separates my two stones. Even if I defend myself, I can get cut like this or cut like this. Right? I have all these cutting points. Why would I ever use these moves if they're so weak? Let's look at the beginning of the game. Let's get rid of these letters first. Let's see what happens if black just plays slow moves and white plays slightly faster. Alright, black's shape cannot be cut apart. All his stones are together, they share liberties. But who has more territory behind their stones? Okay? It looks like black does not have as much territory behind his stones as white does. Alright, and so if this game were to continue like this, where black were to only use iron pillars, then it looks like white's already won the game because he took control of more territory on the board. So you have to balance it. Sometimes, in an area where you're weak, you need to have very strong stones where it's very difficult to break them apart. In other cases, you need territory more so than you need safety, alright? Or you need to attack. In which case, yes, your shape is weaker, but you've developed a good sense of nets and ladders and reading ability, and you're able to defend yourself so that your opponent attack you. That's the balance of this game. So sometimes you need to cut and defend yourself, sometimes you need to play for safety. And the only way you're going to get a sense of that is playing, and I hope you're playing a lot. Maybe if you play online, if you play in person, that's the best thing to do. Lose your first 100 games. That's a Japanese proverb, alright? So Go can be a little bit frustrating, I know, because you play stronger people, and it's not like Parcheesi where maybe they can lose. You lose all the time. If that upsets you, play someone of your own strength. There's a lot of people beginning this game. You can find someone to play with. So just play. Don't worry about winning. You're probably going to lose anyway. Just play whatever you think and get experience. All right, that's the point. All right, find out what works and what doesn't. Be systematic and just relax and have fun. All right, well, that's all I have to talk about today for cutting stones and broken shapes. If you enjoyed this lecture and enjoyed my other 10-minute Go videos, right down there is the like button. It's nice and shiny. Click it. Click subscribe. And then again, tell your friends about me. All right. I do this because I really, really want the Go community to spread. And I want there to be lots of good English language material for beginners. All right. So that's why I do this. It's all completely free, all completely fun. All right. So I'll catch you guys next time.